So we are going to continue our coverage over Donny Cates Thor, and we pick up with Volume 4. And when it comes to Volume 4, it picks up where Volume 3 left off at. Now remember, the Avengers were basically asked by Thor to watch over his hammer, except when it came to the end of our video, our last video, the hammer had disappeared. Somebody had stolen it, and they have no idea who. And so in the opening pages of today's storyline, you have Thor just freaking out and wondering who had taken the hammer of Thor. Now, you also have Thor going over to Lady Sif, and there is a good reason why. Because when it comes to Lady Sif, at this point in time, she had the ability of the Bifrost. And with the Bifrost, she is able to look through all 10 realms at once. And so this is Thor asking her to use her ability to see if anybody had taken the hammer of Thor. Now, when she does it, she does not see anybody with the hammer. But on top of that, she can't see the hammer itself either, which means that there is a real powerful character out there right now that is able to hide from Lady Sif herself. And that is very huge. But she also realized that there's something wrong with Thor. And she's right, because Thor has been reading this book in Asgard, and when it comes to this book, it does tell all the great stories of the great kings in the past before Thor, but it also tells prophecies to come down the road for Asgard. And one of those prophecies is that there is going to be a huge battle between Thor and a new god, the god of Hammer. And apparently the god of Hammer is going to be using the hammer of Thor against Thor and most likely kill him off. And when he dies, well, then the entire universe, or the 10 realms, will be reshaped in that god's image. And the question is right now, who will become the new god of Hammer? We then jump over to the Black Hand of God. Now, when it comes to the Black Hand of God, it's just basically a hand floating in the universe that used to belong to a very powerful creature. For right now, we have no idea who that powerful creature is. But when it comes to the Black Hand of God, it was turned into some kind of arena. Organized fighting. Now, the reason why we're going there because Odin was dropped off there by Angela and been stuck there ever since our last video. And so this is Thor going there to get his father, because his father would know where to find the hammer or how to find the hammer and then stop the person who has stolen it to use the hammer for pure evil. And so once you have Thor arrive, we also get reminded that there is some bad blood between Odin and Thor for so many different reasons. But unfortunately, Thor has no choice here. He has to ask for his father's help. But you also have Odin tell Thor that everybody in the 10 realms know that Thor's hammer is missing. Like, word spread very fast, even to Odin here at this organized fighting arena. Either way, he does agree to help Thor find the hammer. And so they both leave to continue the process of to hopefully figure out who had taken the hammer of Thor. We then jump over to Nidavellir, and when we do, we kind of find out how important this location is. And the reason why, because there is a forge, and when it comes to this forge, it's being controlled by dwarves, and these dwarves are the ones who made the hammer of Thor. And that is very important, because what Odin's saying is that they have a way to track all the different kind of things they made over the years, which means that they should have a way to track your hammer to hopefully find it and then get it back to you. Except when they walk into the forge, all the dwarves are dead. It has been a complete slaughter fest. Every single one of them was killed off. And the question is right now, who did it? And on top of that, could this be the god of Hammer? Is he or she actually real? She has appeared and she already begun the war against Thor. But when we jump into chapter 2 of the storyline, well, this is where we come to find out that the god of Hammer did not just stop at the forge. No, it went to all 10 realms across the world tree and attacked each and every single realm. And the question is now, who is this god of Hammer? who in the world was able to take the hammer of Thor, become a god, and go across the 10 realms to just wreak havoc? And this is Thor beginning to freak out. But then you have Odin kind of, well, being Odin, which means of being a jerk, really. And the reason why I'm saying that, because you have Odin telling Thor they don't have time to mourn the death of different people who have died by the hands of God of Hammer. They just have to move on and find the God of Hammer. But that ticks off Thor a lot. And the reason why, because to Thor, he's saying, how dare you? Because this is your fault, Father, because everything you had created over the years as the All-Father is coming back to bite us. Let's not forget, 2 videos ago, Donald Blake, the other persona of Thor, attacked Asgard and whooped almost everyone until Thor was able to come back and save the day. But that's just one example. But this right here is another example, because when it comes to the hammer of Thor, it was created by Odin and a few Thors as well. Because remember, Odin had to fight against a cosmic storm known as the god Tempest, and once he was able to defeat the cosmic storm, he trapped that storm inside a rock, and that rock was put inside the hammer of Thor. And so right now, it's Thor just saying, this is just another example, Dad, of something you have created falling apart and biting us back in the butt. And now we have to figure out who is the God of Hammer. So yes, Dad, don't act like you Mr. Know Everything and what's the right move to make. Because right now, all your moves is the reason why all 10 realms are struggling right now and burying their loved ones. Then see Thor and Odin head over to Jotunheim. I really hope I pronounced that correctly, guys. I'm sorry. But when it comes to Jotunheim, the home of the ice giants, Loki is now the king of the ice giants. Except, like I said earlier, all 10 realms were hit by the God of Hammer. And so when they arrive, they see the deaths of a lot of ice giants. But they do find Loki. And once they do find Loki, he calls for a meeting with his father and Thor as well. And when it comes to this meeting, it's really more of Loki telling Thor and Odin what he knows about the God of Hammer, because apparently this has been a prophecy for a very long time. It's not just in the great book of the kings over in Asgard. It's been in a lot of different areas across the 10 realms. And apparently Loki found different clues to tell him, or to kind of give him an idea of what is the God of Hammer. Unfortunately, the only thing he knows about the God of Hammer is that once the god rises up, all 10 realms will burn. Now, when it comes to the idea of saying they're going to burn, you have Odin thinks, okay, it's going to be another big war between all 10 realms. But Loki says, no, I didn't say that. I said they will burn, meaning that they'll all will be killed off. The great God of Hammer will go to all realms and kill every single person in each realm, and then try to rewrite all 10 realms in his own image once he killed everybody off, including the All-Father. But then you have Loki say the other 9 realms besides Asgard believes that Asgard was the one behind the attacks. And so with that being said, you have the 9 realms thinking of coming together and attacking Asgard. Luckily, Loki has been able to hold them back for the time being. But the question is right now, for how long? Now you have Thor and Loki wonder if Odin knows who is the God of Hammer. Unfortunately, he may have an idea, except right before he's able to tell his son who could it be, Lady Sif appears, because something big happened down on Earth that Thor has to see. And we come to find out what happened on Earth. See, the God of Hammer did not just attack the 10 realms or the other 9 realms besides Midgard. He also did attack Midgard, but he attacked one specific area, and that would be, of course, Broxton, Oklahoma. And this is very important because this is where Thor came from after he came back to life again after Ragnarok, where all Asgardians stayed at in New Asgard that had floated right over Broxton, Oklahoma. And the people of Broxton and the Asgardians, they got along. They're very close. they look up to Thor. And so right now, when Thor goes back to that town, he sees it has been completely wrecked, which means that the God of Hammer is not just going after, the 9 realms. He's going after different areas that are close to Thor as well, like Broxton, Oklahoma. But just seeing how bad it looks, you have Thor try one more time to call for his hammer. And his hammer does fly towards him, except the hammer is not stopping. It's literally about to crash into Thor. And this is where we kind of find out who is the God of Hammer, because after you have the hammer of Thor just crash into him and he's all like, I can't move it. Why can I not move the hammer? The hammer itself began to attack Thor left and right, beating down on him. And he's wondering what in the world is going on. Why can I not just control the hammer? Why can I not get up at all? And this is where we kind of find out who is the God of Hammer. It's Mjolnir itself. Yes, you heard that right. Mjolnir is somehow controlling itself in this lighting form body and saying that it is the God of Hammer and is going to wreck everything in sight, starting off with Thor, the Allfather of Asgard. And so that is when we jump into the 3rd chapter of this storyline. And let me tell y'all, this 3rd chapter is all Thor getting his butt whooped. I mean, homeboy is getting his butt whooped by Mjolnir. It's literally just going around beating up on Thor left and right. But Thor's wondering how in the world is this possible for Mjolnir to be able to take an actual form and use itself as a way of a weapon to use against Thor, but at the same time wondering, why did his hammer turn against him for? What did he do to deserve this actual moment? And so while you have Thor wondering what in the world is going on, you also have Odin try to step in as well to help out. But unfortunately, no matter what, the hammer just keeps coming back and beating down on Thor and Odin itself. But this does lead into us figuring out what in the world happened to Mjolnir. And so as we dive into the reasoning of why Mjolnir doing all of this for, well, we kind of find out that it all goes back to what Jane Foster did as Thor. And remember, she was Thor for a very long time, except what happened was at the end of her run, she was fighting against a creature known as Mangog. And Mangog is the form of billions of spirits full of rage coming together to create Mangog. With that being said, when it came to Mangog, he was a very unbeatable beast. He was hard to be stopped. And so Jane Foster had a hard time stopping it. But what she had to do was she attached the hammer known as Mjolnir to the great beast and threw both of them into the sun to burn him alive. Where of course he did die in the sun, except Mjolnir did not die. Now, at the end of that, we were left to believe that basically Mjolnir just stayed there until Mangog had burned alive and just turned to ash, and then just came back to Earth to be with Thor. Except we kind of find out that is not completely true. What happened was Mangog's spirit combined with Mjolnir into one. And so Mjolnir plus the spirit of Mangog is the reason why Mjolnir is able to take a actual form at the moment and become this God of Hammer. Now there is another reason why Mjolnir is feeling hatred towards Thor, because it felt abandoned. See, after Jane Foster had threw the hammer into the sun, it felt like it was abandoned by Thor. Jane Foster died, but Thor was still alive. Thor still had the ability to go up there and at least try to get the hammer out of the sun, but Thor never did do that. And so the hammer felt like it was abandoned by Thor, not wanted by Thor. Now, of course, it did come back down and Thor was being Thor again. But that small moment right there in Marvel Comics time period or timeline, it grew the ability to say, you left me behind. I felt abandoned. And once it did combine with Mangog, the spirit of billion people of full of rage, well, those two things right there made a bad mixture. And so right now, it's just Mjolnir saying, I'm here to wreck everything in my path. But on top of that, you also have some help come in to help Thor fight against the God of Hammer, because the God of Hammer in the prophecy said is going to wreck all 10 rounds and rewrite all 10 rounds in its own image. And so you have Asgardian soldiers arriving to battle against Mjolnir, the God of Hammer. But at the same time, you also have some Avengers as well. Except none of them are able to do anything at all to Mjolnir. They're just losing left and right. And unfortunately, they just have to give up. But you have Thor say, no, please just stop. Like, yeah, please go ahead and give up, because this is between me and Mjolnir, not you guys at all. So can you please just step away? And he basically makes a storm around him and Mjolnir to have one big final battle. And so when it comes to Thor and also Mjolnir's conversation, well, this is Mjolnir trying to tell us even more about why they're doing what they are doing. Because you have Mjolnir saying, I was free. I was just a cosmic storm out there in the universe minding my business. But here comes your father putting me inside a rock, and that rock inside a hammer, and then gave that hammer over to you. I was trapped. Now, I did feel some kind of love with you, but at the same time, I was a free being. But let's not forget Mangog here, because Mangog is a billion spirits that were slaughtered by Odin, and their spirits are full of rage that came together to make Mangog to fight against Odin. Two powerful beings that were created by Odin. And so right now you have Mjolnir saying this is all Odin's fault. He is doing all of this. It's his fault that technically we are the way we are. We also come to find out these two guys are the reason why Donald Blake found out that he was not real, that he was a creation made by Odin to be just another persona for Thor to use on Earth, a human persona. And so with that being said, Thor realized, yes, this is all Odin's fault, but at the same time, Odin has to stop Mjolnir now, because if he doesn't, again, all 10 realms are going to get wrecked. Now, Thor is able to get a breathing moment by trapping Mjolnir in a bunch of rocks, only for a brief moment, but he runs over to Odin, and Odin is dying because earlier when Odin and Thor worked together to fight against Mjolnir, Odin got seriously injured, and so it seems like this is going to be the end of Odin. But you have Odin say, listen, to truly become the actual Allfather of Asgard, you need one more thing. You need the Odin Force, but the only way to get the Odin Force is if I die and give it to you. Now for Thor, he realized, wait, what do you mean you have to die? Because when it comes to the Odin Force, it just can't be passed on to you and, both guys survive. Unfortunately, when it comes to the Odin Force, Odin has to die to give it to Thor. And so Odin dies in the hands of Thor, but once he does die, the Odin Force goes over to Thor, and he now becomes the true Allfather of Asgard. He's even more powerful than he was originally. And so now that means he should be able to take down Mjolnir right now at this moment. And so you're now seeing in the final chapter the final battle between Thor and also Mjolnir. And when it comes to this final battle, it's really more of just Thor going all out, because now he has the Odin Force inside of him along with his power as well. And he's just on another level. But when it comes to Thor, what he is trying to do is undo the magic of what Odin did to basically Mjolnir, but also Mangog as well. And honestly, he can do it now, because now he's in control of the Odin Force. And with that power being inside of him, he's now able to undo everything that happened to Mjolnir. And so this is where you could say the death of Mjolnir is here, because Thor is not just trying to, fix the hammer or anything. He is going to break Mjolnir, destroy it completely, get rid of it, so that the God of Hammer thing cannot come to life at all. And this is actually very, very huge. Either way, at the end of the battle, Thor is able to do it. He breaks the hammer, and Mjolnir is actually dead. Now, after that, you do have Thor wake up to his mother, Loki, and also Angela, where they do see if he's okay. Well, of course, Thor is okay, but they can tell that Thor is somewhat depressed about the idea that he had to get rid of his hammer. He had to destroy Mjolnir to save all 10 realms. But at the same time, his father died as well. And so when it comes to Angela, she said, hey guys, listen, I know what could possibly help Thor out of this funk. Let me just talk to him real quick and then we'll come back later on. And so she takes Thor over to the armory in Asgard. And once they walk in, we come to find out that the angels of heaven was able to put Mjolnir back together for Thor, which honestly is a great thing to see. And you have Thor and her both say that now this is just a regular hammer, because the spirit of Mjolnir is no longer there. Because again, Thor got rid of it thanks to the magic of Odin, or the Odin force. And so now it is just a regular hammer. But to kind of leave this story on a cliffhanger, when you have Thor walk up to Mjolnir, we kind of find out there is a new spirit inside the hammer. And no, it's not the God Tempest or the Cosmic Storm that led to the creation of Mjolnir. No, it's Odin himself. His spirit is now inside the hammer. And the question is now, where do our two heroes go from here? But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.